Hello, everyone. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Fun fact, we have our little Sunny Angel mics with us, but hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. Today's video is a little bit different than what I normally do because big deal alert.
Drum roll.
Doobie 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 doo. I'm doing my first ever collab.
Woo!
This is a very big deal. I am collaborating with the gorgeous, amazing, talented Miss
Kimberly Syuardi. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today's video is special for a number of reasons. Not only is it my first ever collab video on this channel, but it is also just like my first ever dip into podcasting. Today's video, I just want it to be a very open and honest and real conversation about postgrad life, what to expect, what it comes with. And Miss Kimberly is just the best person to talk to about this because her and I have both been going through similar experiences in completely different fonts.
Right.
And both of our experiences are so wide that I feel like to any of the postgrads out there watching, someone will be able to relate to at least something one of us says.
Yeah.
So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the post-grad podcast. So I wanted to start off this conversation with a quick introduction for both of our backgrounds, where we both come from. I will let Miss Kim kick off the conversation.
All right. Thank you, Laura. So a little bit about me. Recently graduated from the University of Maryland, College Park last May. I believe you also graduated last May.
Yes.
Yep.
We both graduated in the same class.
Yeah, class of 2024. Woo-hoo.
Shout out.
I got a Bachelor's of Arts degree in communication with a concentration in digital media. And I was very fortunate enough to get a full-time job straight out of college. I actually started working 2 weeks. Yikes. 2 weeks after I walked the stage at graduation. But yeah, I have a communication background. Right now, I'm working at a civil rights nonprofit for one of the largest American Muslim civil rights nonprofits in the nation. So I do a lot of social activism, advocacy, community outreach, specifically with American Muslims, but also with minorities across the DMV. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And do you work every day in the office? Do you work remote? What's your work schedule like?
Yeah, I work a very non-traditional job. So I don't work like a 9 to 5. Usually my hours are between 9 to 5, but because I work at a nonprofit, a lot of the events and outreach that I do are like on weekends or in the evening. So I do work every day. I just make sure that my hours add up to 40 hours. So if I'm working a Saturday, I'll have like an off day throughout the week. Yeah. What about you?
Awesome. Yeah. So for me, as Kim said, I also graduated from the University of Maryland, College Park,
Go Terps.
class of 2024. I got a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science and Policy.
Yes,
with
Miss STEM.
Concentration in biodiversity and
Nice.
conservation biology. And ironically enough, like after college, I got an engineering job for a local government agency straight out of college. And my work differed a lot from Kimmy's in that I worked a very traditional 9 to 5, where I was in the office every single day, 5 days a week. I also had a very long commute. My commute was without any traffic. It was an hour and 10 minutes to work, and coming back, it would be like an hour and a half to sometimes 2 hours if the traffic was really bad. So I had a really long commute, and I was expected to be in the office 5 days a week. There were no options for remote work or hybrid anything, but I had that stability and consistency of the 9 to 5. I was not expected to work on the weekend or anything like that. And right now, I am not working said job anymore. I quit my job actually back in May.
Period.
Just because, I mean, as we'll continue to discuss in this video, I just learned that the job really was not the right fit for me. And yeah, so with our background and just like introduction to ourselves, who we are, I wanted to kick off the postgrad podcast by just being honest and having an open conversation about the specific like struggles that we both had with postgrad. I will start off the conversation by saying, for starters, I think one of the biggest things that I didn't realize how much I was going to miss until I was out of it was I missed being in an environment where I was learning all the time, but not only just like learning in like a school setting, but I feel like when you're in college, everything feels so new and innovative and collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like almost stunted once I started my job. Like, not in the first month, because obviously in the first month of your job you learn so much, but like once you get the hang of it, you really do have to go out of your way to learn new things and like continue to develop. And that was something that I personally found to be pretty difficult.
Can I touch on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Going off of that, I also really struggled with just keeping my brain like fresh, and educating myself like outside of work. Like Laura was saying how she really missed that academic environment, and also I can relate to that because working the same job over and over, your tasks are very similar every day for the rest of your life. Like,
literally,
hello, that is very daunting, and it's hard to keep your brain fresh and healthy and being exposed to different topics and ideas and things. Like in college, you know, you have different classes for a reason, and so something I struggled with a lot post-grad was brain fog, because like after work I'd be exhausted and I would doom scroll and I wasn't reading as much. So one goal that I have for myself now in my work-life balance is to read more, to go to my library and just read from different topics and themes and literature, and just keep my brain really healthy and keep it fresh, because you won't have a professor to keep you accountable anymore.
Literally, like you are the only person that can hold yourself accountable.
Right.
Literally that. I think just to like add on to like you are the only person to like hold yourself accountable, to bounce off, another thing that I personally really struggled with a lot with post-grad was, okay, this is going to be like kind of not really a tangent, but hear me out. Ready? Something that I found to be so unsettling about post-grad is the concept of time, in the sense that, let's say when you're in school and you're having like a really difficult semester, you know that there will be an end to it, right? Because there is this inevitable deadline, this inevitable like ending to a semester. Or let's say your winter break, you're really struggling during winter break and you can't wait to get back to school. You know that that period of time
will end.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas like the really unsettling thing I found about post-grad was like, there really is no end.
That's the reality of like entering the workforce, is that, you know, you are expected to enter the workforce and like there's just no end. Like you either quit and go to a new job, or you just quit and you're unemployed.
Literally.
So
and like quitting
it's scary.
is really scary.
Yeah.
And, like, I think something that I found to be so horrifying was like, I had this thought to myself while I was at my job where I was like, damn, if I like did nothing and stayed comfortable at this job, I could let 10 years of my life flash by.
Just go
and,
by.
Like, nothing really would happen from that.
Yuck.
So scary. And, like, so weird. And so, yeah, just post-grad, you really have to take initiative and be proactive with yourself about not only like continuing to better yourself and grow and become like, you know, intellectually stimulate yourself.
Kind of going off of that, like with work-life balance, I think that was another major challenge I faced post-grad, because I lost a lot of friends who weren't aligned with my values, and I was growing really fast. In such a short amount of time, I grew so fast, and so much has happened this past year that it was so overwhelming. And so I really want to emphasize that work-life balance, as cheesy as it is, we all hear that term, like work-life balance. It is so important, you guys, to carve out the time for your hobbies and make sure your interests, your hobbies, your passions, and just make sure that your work is not the center of your life, because you will just become depressed and burn out.
No, literally. And I also too want to highlight how I feel like the older generation really shits on Gen Z a lot for prioritizing work-life balance.
Because I think we're lazy, and that's not it.
It's literally not it at all. Because, like, this is going to be also kind of a mini tangent, but I feel like Gen Z and millennials, we were really sold on this, like, false idea of the American dream. Where you go work a 9 to 5, you earn your money, and you buy your house, and now...
And you're in thousands of dollars of debt.
And, like, now we're seeing that it doesn't work out for
like that.
A lot of people in life. The cookie doesn't crumble like that, right? Because that was like another critique that I not only heard from a lot of my coworkers, but just like older people in general, that like this generation doesn't want to work. This generation, all they care about is what they do outside of work. And what really shifted my perspective about work and post-grad is like, personally for me, I don't want to live to work.
Yeah.
I want to be able to work to live, or just like have a life outside of work
Right,
as well.
right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of Gen Z are waking up because
Yeah.
we are the first generation to just not settle for this shit, like honestly.
Yeah.
And maybe the older generation might see that as like laziness or a lack of work ethic, but I really think it's just because we have boundaries and we care about our mental health. And like for so long, the older generation didn't even believe in mental health.
Right.
And so
nor were they even given that luxury to care.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like,
so
nor were they given that privilege to be able to be conscious of other things, like, you know, outside of the physical and the mental, you know?
Exactly. And I think that's why too, when you graduate from college, it's so important to do your research on the company or job you're entering, because if you don't do any research and you just go in and then you find out you're working with a bunch of old heads, the culture of a company, you guys, is so important. And I'll pass it over to Laura to talk more about her personal experience. But definitely make sure you're doing your research about companies and you're not just getting super excited about, oh my gosh, like, Mom, I got a job offer, I'm going to accept it. Like, no. You want to make sure you're doing the thorough like background research of who's working there, the culture, their mission, their values, because yes, the paycheck might sound nice, but if you're gonna hate yourself working at a job, it's just not worth your mental health.
It's not worth it. Yeah. And like just to like add on to like another thing I personally found to be really difficult with post-grad was the place that I was working at. I was the youngest person in my office. I think I had only one other coworker who was 20, but everyone else at a minimum, I believe, were in their like mid to late 40s.
Were they parents, most of them?
Most of them were parents. Most of them were grandparents, by the way. Like, there was a very significant age gap between me and a lot of my coworkers, and it really felt isolating because I felt like I couldn't connect with a lot of my coworkers. And that's like another thing I really struggled with post-grad is like, if you don't have like a solid community at work, and like a solid, even just like singular friend, I ended up making my one friend, right? But like, if you don't have that, it can be so incredibly isolating and also just like difficult to want to show up to work every single day. And I think another thing I struggled with coming from college, where you're meeting new people
like every
single day, to then like literally going to the same place every single day and seeing the same people for years on end.
And if you don't like those people, it's even more of a challenge. And I know they say that like colleagues should not be friends. I know they say that, but at least having that professional relationship where like it's not awkward and it's not weird, like I feel like that's the bare minimum of a job.
Or just like being able to connect with people.
Like,
sometimes when there's an age gap that big, it's just like inherently difficult. So the next, I guess, just struggle I wanted to talk about post-grad specifically for me was, I mean, clearly 2024 and early 2025 have been very, very politically contentious years. I don't even know if that's like the right way to phrase it, but the 2024 election by itself, everything that's going on in Palestine, climate change, the big beautiful bill, like just all of these like incredibly
monumentous moments
literally
that Gen Z is experiencing.
Literally, like
first the pandemic, now this. Like,
first the pandemic.
Can we get a break?
I'm so sick and tired of living through historical events. Like I just want to pump the brakes, but something that I really, really struggled with that like really took a weight on my mental health while at work was like seeing all of this like overwhelming political news and feeling like, I mean, obviously there's so much that we can do as individuals to help, of course, and I will never deny that, but like feeling powerless in a sense, but then having to like come to work and like pretend that everything is normal when, you know, you see and hear all of this like really overwhelming political news. And it also like made me feel like the work I was doing at my job just like it felt meaningless, and I felt like so much further disconnected from it because it was so deeply not what I resonated with and not what I wanted to do. And I just felt that there were so many more important things in the world to care about. But then at the same time, like feeling guilt about all of those negative feelings that I had, because at least I had a job, at least I had a stable income, right? And so like managing all of those complex emotions while like literally having to like sit in an office and pretend that everything was normal was something that I found to be like paralyzingly difficult. Like it was so hard.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for sharing that. It's very hard to make a decision to leave when you need income, but then feeling like, oh my gosh, the work I'm doing literally has no freaking impact. Like, what am I
Literally.
even doing here? Like,
Literally me
insert.
at work.
But on the opposite of that, of what Lara just shared, I actually had a different struggle post grad, which is that my job is very meaningful, and I'm very thankful that I get to work in a capacity where I'm helping people. I'm helping people who look like me, who are from like the same upbringing as me,
Mhm.
who have shared values as me. I'm able to make an impact, and I think that's a really great positive about my job. But on the flip side, I think that one, working in politics or at a activism advocacy organization can be very mentally taxing on your mental
Yeah.
health. And
Yeah.
I wanted to share that being hyper exposed to the news and what's going on with everything going on with Palestine and the Middle East, and just honestly, like everywhere around the world, it can take a toll on you. Like being a politician or activist, like you have to have thick skin because
Yeah.
as an empath like myself, there have been like nights and days at work where like I just want to take a personal day because it's just too much. It's so emotional to see what's
Yeah.
going on overseas.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like I should be forcing myself to see those things because I'm so privileged to be here in America and
Mhm.
to work this job that
Yeah.
the people of Palestine live that. Like I'm just seeing it on a screen. Like
Right.
yeah, that's my take. But I wanted to get into how my job. I love my job. I love the work that I do, and it's very meaningful.
Mhm.
But my challenge is with bosses and leadership. So I
Mm.
definitely think when you are applying to jobs, just keep an open mind that
Yeah.
like not every boss or manager or supervisor or whoever is like going to be not looking after you, but like supervising you,
Yeah.
they aren't going to be your bestie. And
No.
like don't expect that all of your colleagues are going to be friends with you. They suggest that you shouldn't be friends with people in your professional workplace, and I kind of like agree with that. You should keep it separate. But that was my challenge, is not always seeing eye to eye on things with
Mhm.
leadership, and just having to keep an open mind and stay patient when
Yeah.
things don't always go your way.
Oh yes. Oh yes. The way probably all of your guys' patience has
Has
been
been
tested.
tested.
And like
Yeah.
sometimes you just experience things and you're like, what the
You're like,
fuck? You
yeah,
experience something, you're like, oh my glob, but then like you can't do anything about it. You just
about
have to
it.
like put on a face and be
Yeah.
like, okay,
Right.
pretend that this is normal.
Especially as an entry level like
Yes.
individual,
Oh my gosh.
you don't want to
Yes.
like do something or say something unprofessional that will like risk you getting like fired or retaliated against. So it
Literally.
sucks, but
Yeah.
it's a rite of passage. Like everyone post grad will go through it
Yeah.
when you're at the bottom of like the pyramid. It's
Literally.
just like something we all deal
It's
with.
something
Yeah.
we all deal with. The final thing that I personally wanted to touch on with like something that I really struggled with post grad was the fact that you go from being in a college environment where you have like complete control and agency over your schedule, but not only your schedule, your time as well.
Yes,
That
yeah.
like your time is truly your own, your schedule is truly your own. And like, yes, you have obligations like class, exams, yada, yada, yada. But like at the end of the day, like
You have that freedom.
you have that freedom. Like you
Mhm.
can choose whether you go to class or not.
Yeah.
You can choose whether you do this or not, right? To go from that to then immediately a working environment
Yeah.
where you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
You could be having the worst
Worst
day of
day.
your life
Mhm.
and you still
They
gotta
don't
show
care.
up to
You gotta
work.
show up.
You have to show
You
up
have
to
to
work.
show up.
And if
Yeah.
you don't want to show up, you are using your time, right? Like you don't have control over your time anymore. And
Mhm.
I just didn't realize how much for granted I took like the resource of time until I started working my 9 to 5 office job. It's
Yeah.
just like crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy switch and definitely a hard transition because depending like where you end up working, you will have like a limited what's it called? Paid time off, PTO
Yeah.
and bereavement and sick leave.
Mhm.
There are folks who get really lucky and land an amazing job where they get unlimited PTO. But yeah, it's definitely a hard transition to give up your time. I don't want to word it that way, but it feels like you're giving up your time because when you want to request off or go on vacation or do
Yeah.
whatever, like you always have to ask for permission. You
Right.
can't just like not show up to work.
Right.
Yeah.
Literally. Like your time is not completely your own. And like
Exactly.
I still remember so distinctly LMFAO. If you watched my May vlog, shameless plug, you should check it out right there. But you will know that like literally like the day after I broke up with like my long-term partner at the
Yeah.
time, like literally the next day I had to go to work, and that was like one of the worst
very hard.
experiences
Yeah.
ever. Like dealing with just like such a soul-crushing emotional change, and then having to drive to an office with people that I didn't really
Wanna
connect
see,
with, didn't really
yeah.
want to see, quite honestly, and like having to put up a front and pretend that everything was okay was like so
hard.
difficult.
And jumping in, like I had a similar experience. It wasn't a breakup, but it was like a friendship breakup. And one challenge,
Not to interrupt, but I
You're
feel like
good.
those are like more painful in a way. Like those are really difficult.
Those are
Yeah.
hard, especially female friendship breakups. But like, yeah, jumping in, I wanted to talk about one of my challenges post grad is understanding that friends come and go, just like seasons. You know, some friends aren't meant to stay in your life forever, and that's okay. But I had a really hard time accepting that when I graduated. And there was one day I had a really, really bad anxiety. It wasn't even an attack. It was an episode, my therapist said, because it lasted more than one day. And it was so bad. I was throwing up and I couldn't get out of bed. And I won't like share too many details. All I will say is that money was owed, like for a shared house bill, and I was not given that money. I won't say who, what, when, where, why, but basically whenever money's involved, I feel like it's super sensitive. And so some former friends owed me money, and the communication got lost and I never got my money back. And it was right when I was like starting my new full-time job, and so many changes was happening. And anyways, it triggered a really, really bad anxiety episode. I've never had an episode, and I couldn't get out of bed. I had to call out of work. And anyways, this all ties into time, because I had to call out of work because my mental health was deteriorating. So yeah, it just sucks that like our time is not really our time. You always have to ask permission and always have to go through work. So it's definitely a hard adjustment.
A really hard adjustment. And so just to like wrap up, I guess like this specific segment of the podcast, like obviously we are going to jump into, I guess, more positive, more encouraging, you know, topics. Post-grad is not all doom and gloom.
Right.
But Kim and I really did want to highlight and just like be upfront and have a very open and honest conversation about the things we struggle with post-grad, just so if you guys are watching this, and if you are a post-grad, if you are struggling with where you're at with your job and just like anything like that, just know that you are not alone.
Yes.
It is so
we see
normal.
you.
We see
you. We validate you.
We validate you. We feel you.
And it's also very normal to go through these motions, and just know that it will get better. Like if I could go back 1 year and just shake myself and be like, Kim, stop stressing yourself out. Stop like being anxious. You're going to be okay. I wish I had that person to tell me everything will be okay, because I know it's super hard to feel like you can't control everything, especially when you graduate. You just want to control like, oh, where I'll be moving and my job, and I want to move out and this and that and all these changes. But the reality is you can't control everything, and you have to just roll with the punches. So.
You have to roll with the punches. And like another thing too, I saw a reel that it was like so valuable to like hear, but this girl was essentially saying that like your first year post grad is essentially the same experience as your first year of college, right? Everything is like everything you knew and everything you were used to is all of a sudden being flipped upside down and has changed, right? And so of course things are going to be overwhelming. Of course you're going to be in unfamiliar territory. And of course there will be that inherent struggle with managing all of these changes at once. But everything gets better with time. And so with all of that being said, we wanted to transition into just specific lessons that we've learned from just being a year out of post-grad. You want to start off the conversation?
Yeah, I'll go first. I would say the biggest lesson I learned after being 1 year out of college is that you really have to put yourself first. And that means taking care of your body, your mind, your soul, your interests, your family, everything. Don't let work consume you. It's going to feel like that in the beginning because you're trying to adapt to a new routine. But just like I said in the beginning of this video, like have that work-life balance and find a good routine that works for you. For me, I really wanted to prioritize my mental health because my mental health was shit after graduation. So much happened. But I prioritized it by going to therapy and really carving out that time to see a therapist every week. That really helped me. I know therapy isn't for everyone, but if you can just have that third space where you can go and decompress and de-stress, whether that's the gym, therapy, seeing friends, whatever it might be, like have that third space because it's really important.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you, like 120%. And just to like add on to that, I think like the biggest thing for me that I learned, because I'm not gonna lie, like obviously, like clearly I quit my post grad job that I got, period, right? But like I'm not gonna lie, I felt and I still do feel like a lot of shame around quitting it and around leaving.
Yeah.
And I always remind myself though that like every single experience you have has value to it, whether it is positive or negative. And even though like my first job out of college was not a positive experience, it still had so much value because I
Exactly.
learned so much from it.
Yes.
For example, I would like to just start a small segment called Office Red Flags. Office red flags to look out for. Look out for these red flags.
You
If
go first.
See these red flags?
Run.
Run.
Don't ignore the red flags. It's just like a relationship.
Literally.
Yeah, a toxic workplace, Laura taught me this, is similar to a toxic relationship. There will be red flags and green flags and all the things.
Literally that. And like also to add on to what Kimmy said, because this was something I literally talked to my therapist about.
Yeah.
And it was right around the time that I was contemplating leaving my job or not.
Yeah.
And like anytime I would talk to her about it, I would be like, yeah, well, you know, I really struggle a lot with this, this, and this. But at the same time, it is stable. I have the stability of income. I am making money. It is really nice. And she essentially told me, like, you are going through like a similar experience of what it's like to be in a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
And you're going to reach a point where the pain and heartache of staying will outweigh the pain and heartache of the uncertainty of leaving.
Right.
And that was the point I got to.
That's when
and
she knew she had to leave.
That's when I knew I had to leave.
Yeah.
But let's start off with some red flags to look out for. And please, again, if you see these red flags in a future place of employment, run.
Yeah, you should go.
My first biggest red flag, and this again was very reflective of my experience, is if your future boss is completely overworked, and if they are coming into work early, if they are leaving work late, if they seem to never have any type of balance with work
or boundaries with work,
that is a very big red flag.
Yes.
Very big red flag.
If your future boss or employer is always busy and always assigns you last minute tasks, or feels like it's an environment where it feels like you don't really know what's going on, because there's so much going on and your boss is completely overworked and overwhelmed, it's a red flag, because you want to be somewhere where there is balance and healthy work boundaries. You don't want a boss that will push you to work on the weekends or overtime when you're not being paid for that work.
The reason we say all of that is like a really huge red flag is because if your boss is overworked and like does not have those boundaries themselves, they will likely expect you to not have those boundaries for yourself.
Yes, thank you. And you don't want to
feeling.
work at some place where, you know, your boss is not giving you the dedicated time that you need to get your work done. It just makes your job harder, and then it also decreases morale. It's just not a fun place to be. Yeah.
The next red flag that I would, not red flag, but something I have learned to become extremely observant of is observe what the dynamic is between your future coworkers. Because 9 times out of 10, if your boss is so overly insistent of like, we're like a family here, we're all so close.
The family? No, when they say we're like a family verbatim, run. That is not, no.
And like obviously, you know, coworkers can for sure be friends.
Yeah.
And communities can for sure happen in workplaces, but there is a difference. One.
Yes.
And two, like again, when you observe the way people interact with each other, not just the way coworkers interact with your boss, but the way they interact with each other, I feel like that is so much more telling of like what the actual office vibe is like.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
The next like red flag that was kind of specific to my office is observe how organized the office is. If it is cluttered and disorganized, that might be a sign to run for the hills, right? Because that might be a sign that there is not a lot of reliable structure. And
clock it.
Yeah.
I would say another red flag for me too is like having supervision that feels like micromanaging. You want to be able to like do your work and feel like you have creative freedom and the freedom to do things without it getting torn apart. So for example, like if you have a supervisor or a boss that just feels like you feel like they're always looking over your shoulder and they're a perfectionist, I think that's a red flag, because perfectionists are just not, they're not reliable. Like, they're not ideal to have as bosses because nothing is ever going to be up to their standard. And it just creates a very like toxic workplace because
And stressful.
yeah, stressful because
work
it will
environment.
make you feel like, oh my gosh, nothing I'm doing is deemed valuable. So
Mhm.
yeah, definitely run if they're a micromanager.
Run. Like Florence the Machine said, run fast for your mother, fast for your father, run for your children. This is like another thing that I also want to highlight is because, again, my experience was being the youngest employee.
Yeah.
If you are the youngest employee / the only minority in your office space, you have to be hyper. Obviously, I'm not calling all white people racist or all old people ageist. Like,
Oop.
that is not what I am saying.
No, she's not.
Whatsoever. Let me make that disclaimer abundantly clear, right? But you should be aware that extra eyes will be placed on you. Okay?
Yes, yes.
People will be more observant of not only the work you do, but also your work ethic, your behavioral patterns, how many bathroom breaks you take, what time you come into work,
Yeah.
right? Like, people will just be a lot more
Perceiving
vigilant
you,
and
yeah.
observant of you.
Yeah.
And like, just make sure that that is something you are aware of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like, we live in a world where, you know, they say, oh, we're an equal, like, what is that one policy? Like, we're an equal employment place and
Right,
like we don't
yeah.
discriminate against sex.
Equal
Yeah.
opportunity,
Yeah, something like that.
workplace, something like that.
But anyways, I was saying like they claim that, but then, you know, if you are the only minority or young person or woman, whatever it might be in the workplace, like Lara said, just feel the eyes on you and be ready to maybe having to code switch and act differently. And it sucks because no one should have to act differently like in their workplace. They should feel comfortable to just be themselves. And so I think that's a red flag too, is when you feel like I can't be myself at my job.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a difference between maintaining professionalism while being yourself. But yeah, we talked about, I think in my video, which by the way, we have a collab on my channel.
Yes. Go check out the collab on Kim's channel.
Yes.
Go check it out.
But I was going to say on my channel, Lara was saying how she is a very bubbly and outgoing person and she felt very, you know, like shelled in and caved in and reserved at her job. So you want to feel like you can be yourself at your job and of course while maintaining professionalism.
Yeah. All right. Now we are going to go into just like, I guess just to like keep adding on to the lessons and just like adding on to the theme of like things we wish we knew about post-grad. And the first thing, to any recent graduates out there, any upcoming seniors, anyone who is new and approaching this era, please, if you have the option, take the summer off before you start working. Please.
100% agree with her. From personal experience, guys, after I graduated, I worked 2 weeks right after I walked the stage at UMD, and then I went straight into working, and I really regret that. You need the time off, especially that summer, to just travel or just honestly take a break because you went through 4 years of school and you deserve a break. You're gonna get burnt out like me, and I just really don't recommend starting anytime soon. Like, push that start date like really near August or September as far as you can, and enjoy your summer off.
Because the kicker is, once you start working, you're not gonna stop. There's no more summer break. No more winter break.
No more spring break. Like, it's just
that.
Work and paid, maybe like paid holidays, like 4th of July and Christmas and stuff like that. But
even then, that's like a
it's
day.
Exactly.
That's not, like,
so
a sustained period of time.
Exactly. So really take advantage of your summer. What is the next thing you wish you knew, Miss Lara?
So the next thing I would tell myself / any of you out there, please, if you have control of it, if you are able to, do not work for someone who views you as easily replaceable and easily expendable, no matter how much value you bring to your company or your organization. Because at the end of the day, if your boss views you like that, then they will not respect your time. They will not respect you and value you as an employee, as a worker, and it just
it won't be a good fit. And you really want to make sure you're somewhere where you're valued and, you know, you're feeling heard and seen and all the things in between. So that's a really great piece of advice. One thing I wish I knew after I graduated is that your first job, you guys, will not be your dream job.
No.
You have to be very realistic with yourself when you enter the workforce, and just remind yourself that, okay, I got this job, I'm getting my foot in the door into the workforce, but I am going to be mindful of my salary expectations. I'm going to be mindful of the work environment. You know, right when you graduate, you might be super excited, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be making money and I'm going to move out and start my life. But just make sure you remember your first job is not your dream job. And if it doesn't go right, or it goes south, or it's not perfect, that's okay. That's normal.
Completely
the first
normal.
couple of jobs right after graduation are supposed to be for experience. And I don't think they're supposed to be for your dream salary. I mean, hey, if you land a job and you get an offer of 100K, good for you. I know like a handful of friends who have, mashallah, gotten that. It's okay if you're not making 100K at the age of 23 and you know you're just starting out. Like, it's okay. You have to be mindful and just realize you're on your own journey and path, and don't compare yourself to others.
Yes, literally. The next thing that I really wanted to highlight is that, because I remember leaving college, because yes, in college you do have complete agency and time over your schedule, but part of me thought that I would have more free time being post-grad and working than I did in college, because I didn't have homework anymore, or because I didn't have exams or essays or anything like that to write. So I thought I would have more time to devote to my hobbies, and I thought like starting work would be quote unquote the perfect time to take my hobbies and my creative endeavors seriously. And the reality is that there will never be a perfect time to start a hobby or to start a passion, and there will always be some type of trade-off and setback. And I don't even say that in a negative way, I just say that in like a neutral way. Like, that is just how life works. And so if something is really important to you and something is really valuable to you, like for example for me, YouTube is something that I love doing and I'm so passionate about, and it's something that makes me feel so fulfilled. And I'd always put it on the back burner for so long. And even when I was searching for jobs and like thinking about like, okay, if I take this job, I'll have X amount of hours to devote to YouTube. If I take this job, I'll have X amount of hours to devote to YouTube, right? And like, it got to a point where I was like realizing to myself, like, this has been something I've been wanting to do for so long, but there will just never be like the utmost perfect time to start it. So just start it. I know that's like kind of unrelated to what we were saying or just the topic of conversation earlier, but something really important I want to put out there for all of you all.
And that's really good advice, because that can be applied to anything in life where, you know, if you're feeling wary about something, but your gut is telling you like, maybe I should, you know, start this or do it. Like, just do it. Just start it. And follow your gut. Always follow your intuition.
Yes. And then the last, I think this is a really good practical piece of advice for when you are selecting a job, or just like when you're choosing your next job, whatever, is obviously think about the type of work you'll be doing and if it aligns with what you want, what you're passionate about, whatever. But also at the same time, think about this type of lifestyle that you want to live. Do you want to live a lifestyle that is stable? Like, you know, you have the same schedule every single day, you have the same schedule every single week, and you can work around it. So that would mean a 9 to 5 is great for you. Or do you want to have the flexibility to be able to travel, to be able to, you know, have certain days off and whatnot, right? Like, think about, prioritize and think about that type of lifestyle that you want to live. And I think it'll make selecting a job a lot easier, because then you'll be more cognizant of picking something that actually matches the lifestyle that you want to live and aligns with your values, not only in terms of work and passion, but also lifestyle and how you choose to live your life.
100%. I love that, because having the option to work remote, hybrid, in person, those things, like, they make a difference. And that was one major difference between Lara and I's experience, is that I work hybrid and mostly remote. My in-person work is just really for events, and Lara had to work full-time in the office, and that can really affect your life outside of work. So that's great advice.
But with all of that being said, that was our podcast.
Yay! First collab done.
Collab
We
done.
smashed it.
We smashed it. I hope you all love this podcast. Please,
Yay.
please, please go check out Kimberly's channel. It will be linked in the description. We also did a collab video on her channel as well. She makes amazing videos. She does long form and short form content.
Oh, thank you,
So
Miss
follow her on
Laura.
Instagram, follow her on TikTok. Just like go check her out. She is awesome. And yeah, if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe down below.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the things. And we'll see you next collab. Question mark?
Duh.
Yeah.
We'll see you in the next collab.
Bye.
Peace. Bye.